Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Heal Your Shadow Relationships. I'm your host, Neola Sparkus, and today I am so pleased to have with us the beautiful, wonderfully accomplished Maryanne Comaroto. She is a relationship expert, a radio personality, and an award-winning author. Her weekly radio show, Maryanne Live, reaches millions of listeners in 108 countries. She is a go-to expert for many TV shows and publications, too numerous to mention. Her books include the award-winning Skinny, Tan, and Rich, Unveiling the Myth, and Hindsight, What You Need to Know Before You Drop Your Drawers, which sounds really good. She created the CORR course, Certificate of Responsible Relationship. It's accredited by the state of California. And she has a 4 CD series called Thrive, 7 Essential Truths for Revealing Your Secret Sacred Self. And together with her husband, David Reynal, she has created the Great Relationships Begin Within divination deck. And I love that saying, and I always say that myself. Maryanne has founded a personal development corporation called Show Me, and also a nonprofit called National Action Organization, and it is committed to changing the way our culture values each other. She graduated with honors in psychology at Dominican University and currently is a doctoral student at Pacifica Graduate Institute. Congratulations on that, and welcome to the summit, Maryanne.
Daniela, it's so great to be here. Thank you for including me. There's quite a list of very esteemed people devoted to helping us awaken from the shadows. So thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. It's an honor to have you here. And I have listened to some of your radio archives, and at the beginning of every show, I love how you bring the audience into a centeredness with a little bit of deep breathing. So I was wondering if you would like to lead us in a little bit of that right now.
My pleasure. It's really, really simple. I invite us all to turn our attention inwards and give ourselves the gift of our own attention by simply taking an inward, interior-oriented, audible breath. So go ahead and let your shoulders drop away from your earlobes. They're not earrings. And roll your shoulders back. You can do this whether you're driving or wherever you find yourself right now, whatever time of day. Fill your belly or your lungs or both with breath and then release. And listen to your sound, the sound of yourself. And that's how we start to get here. And from there, we climb through a portal of gratitude while we're breathing in and out. Why not? Because we can. We're grateful we can breathe. So there it is. That's how I like to start.
Thank you so much. And as we know, gratitude is just like a shortcut to being open to all the grace and all the blessings that are there for us to receive every moment. So we are here talking about healing your shadow relationships. Each one of my experts has a slightly different perspective on that topic, so I'd love to hear what that phrase, shadow relationships, means to you.
Wow. Beautiful words, often misunderstood, seems ominous for some people, compelling to others. I am not afraid myself. I'm intrigued, but my context or my current orientation, having been a seeker for a really long time, and I say that probably because I've taken the scenic route to trying to awaken, not because I'm trying to pull rank. Seriously, like I should have been able to figure some of this stuff out a long time ago. But in the context of being in relationship with shadow, or shadow in relationship, the way I see it is we're relational creatures. It's not anything I made up. Our reptilian brain started first, then the mammalian brain came next. We're social creatures. We're wired to be in relationship as a matter of survival. This is not a theory necessarily. We've pretty much proven this, and again, and it's become a platform for a lot of the teaching that a lot of us do. But we don't think about it. So, what does that have to do with shadow? Well, as relational creatures, on top of that comes the higher mind, right? The psycho-spiritual aspects to being human in a human body, right? The sort of more existential parts of ourselves that are harder to pinpoint and prove. And so for a number of years, and I like to sort of look at shadow in the Jungian perspective, where it's the psyche, the deep unconscious, the collective is another word for it. It's for me the place where who we really are is trying to emerge to remind us of who we really are. It's really that simple for me. Now, it is not an easy contemplation. It's mind bending, and there's a lot more to be said. But in terms of intimate relationship, the last thing I'd like to say is I believe great relationships begin within. It's taken me a lot of years to find those words and really feel the profound truth of them. It's not a cliche, it's poetry of the soul. And so, whatever shadow means for you, I think we can all agree it's the dark places that we don't know, turning our attention to our interior and being in relationship from that place. And then ultimately, which is kind of the full circle, right? Remembering, oh, there is no other. So we go on this big journey to come back to what we already know, but we didn't know we knew.
That's the paradox. And all truth really resides in the paradoxes of life. If we can get our spirit to be large enough to embrace both sides of the paradox, that's when you know you can embody the truth. Isn't that the truth?
I think so. It feels like an edge, and it sounds good in my mind, but it's like, whoa, getting up on two skis with one leg sometimes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that that this process is to reveal a larger part of ourself, a more authentic part of ourself that is wanting to break through. Why is that so difficult? You would think that our natural self, our authentic self, is just ready to emerge and we can be one with it, but why do we find that so difficult? Why is it such a process? And you even mentioned that you felt you should have gotten there a long time ago, which I don't want to put any shoulds on you. We don't want to should on ourselves, right?
Not today. Not right now. It's one of the big questions, isn't it? I mean, I think we stand on the heels of many, many people who have inquired into this place. Why do we struggle? Some people say it's the universe wanting to know itself turned into the Big Bang. I mean, you could call that a kind of struggle.
Wow.
I like to think of it like that. So I notice that our thinking mind culture, we get really attached to the good ideas and the bad ideas and things that make us feel good and things that make us feel bad, moving towards one and away from the other. And it sounds like I might be oversimplifying, but really for me, it's that simple. That when I can, as Buddha talked about, find the real truth, it lies somewhere in between, right? It's not about feeling good. So struggle becomes a more neutral territory. It becomes a place to contemplate. Like, what does that mean? What is the real struggle, right? So I know this isn't a specific answer, but it's an important place to contemplate. As a matter of fact, I think this very question, to be honest with you, is the portal that most of us enter into the path of awakening, right? We just are in so much pain or are suffering, and then we go, oh my gosh, You know,
Yeah.
what was I thinking? Well,
Why couldn't it have been easier? Why couldn't I arrive at my lessons through joy or through lightness? And um, well, I love that you say sit with the question, because that is something that, as you say, our mental oriented culture always wants to get to the solution, to get to the goal, to get to the answer, to put something in a box, to think of it black and white. And, when you're dealing with your interiority, your spirit, your being, it's not going to fall into that simple of a box.
right. Well, they say that if your mind thinks it's true, it's probably not. You know, like the mind is here to serve our body. They're finding the heart, the center of intelligence, they, us, we that are seeking. And the mind is here to serve that intelligence. And so for me, inquiry is the path, it's the way, sitting with and listening for my yeses and nos, for the next right thing, or, and developing my relationship with that listening. And when I'm up in my head and all the chatter and where the fear lives and all of that, it's hard to hear. So I'm big on inquiry. It's my practice, actually, the basis of
Yes,
my practice.
absolutely. And you did write the book, Seven Essential Truths for Revealing Your Secret Sacred Self. I don't know if you can tell us, maybe a truth or two about how we can get in touch and reveal what is beyond the shadow that is seeking to emerge.
Sure. My favorite, the 7 points were really what were revealed to me at the end of a long, painful journey of seeking love outside myself, as a lot of us do. We start, if you're a psych major or you're in psychology, attachment issues and family dynamics and Freudian, psycho thinking. We are programmed. It's nurture, and then the other folks think it's nature. But for me, what I found is whatever information I had wasn't enough to transcend the suffering I was feeling. So when I sat and pressed into the darkness, I was so filled with pain and with suffering that was the one thing I hadn't done really, and said the most real prayer in my life. The short version is I was shown, and this was so many years ago before this was even popular. People thought you were a loon if you talked like this. But I was shown these principles, and the first one that I loved was listen to your body. And that was shocking to me. I always thought that whatever my mind told me was true. It seemed so compelling, and it was always coming up with really good ideas, yet looking back in hindsight, I could see the futility of these thoughts. They would always lead me back to sort of chasing my tail. So beyond the mind is the wisdom of the body, I found. And so that's the first principle. And another one of my favorites, and I have a free magnet if anybody wants it. People have them all over the world. I love sending them out. All you have to do is pay for shipping and handling. And we made them, and they have the 7 essential truths. So they're really great. I didn't, make them up. They came from that Akashic wisdom or whatever. So I'm happy to share it.
If you have a link, a URL, I'll put it down here below.
Beautiful. MaryanneLive.com, and you
Okay.
can just, or info at Maryanne Live, and say, hey, I'd love that. And then my assistant or one of our team members would be happy to get that out. So another one of them that I really love, which was very surprising, I think it's the fourth essential truth, is surround yourself with supportive people. Well, when you are me and you were surrounded by a very dysfunctional family dynamic and in a culture that honors the victim and really, sort of shuns the perpetrator mentality and that duality, that was kind of a strange concept. I didn't really understand it until I started deepening in to the idea that having the proper support is critical to healing. One of the things that we're going to talk about in a minute is, suggestions on how to have great relationships. Well, I always say, do everything. I don't have one thing. I say do everything and anything that you can get your hands on that you think will help you wake up, and including surround yourself with supportive people. So those are a couple, but I have a comprehensive CD series that has a guided visualization, and I help you find that guidance inside yourself that actually helped pretty much save my life. Really, that's just the truth. So yeah.
Well, since you brought up the subject, let's talk about how to apply this in relationships. What can you do to either for somebody who's seeking a relationship, wanting to find their life partner or whatever, or somebody who is looking for greater enhanced connection in their current relationship?
Well, let's talk about the folks that are currently at a place where they're not in the relationship they'd like to be in, or the relationship that they would deem their heart's greatest desire. Assuming that we know what that means, that's a really big thing to know, I think. But let's say you're somewhere in that ballpark. I wrote down a quote that Buddha said that really makes it important to contemplate. Buddha says the only way to really fail in life is to not be true to the best one knows. So you're like, well, what does that have to do with this? Well, here's the thing. When I was looking for a relationship and I really sat with myself, which most people don't want to sit with themselves. They believe that relationship is the answer to everything, right? That's how we're trained, especially women are programmed. We really believe that love is outside of ourselves. But when I saw my pattern repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat, and the people's names changed, but the dynamics were the same, I was onto something. I found a clue that the common denominator, the little scientist that I am, in all of my relationships was me. Mm-hmm. So I turned my attention inwards, and what I knew to be true is I wasn't ready. Very painful. This was not what I was looking for. I was terrified to be alone. I had a panic disorder on top of it, which is partly why I was in relationship. I was afraid to sleep alone at night. I was afraid to be alone in the world. I didn't know how to take care of myself, and on and on. So this kind of truth, facing it, changed my life. And from that place, from really listening to what's absolutely true, then I was able to start to attend to the deeper realms of healing, not just the mental thinking mind. I mean, heck, if therapy... And I'm a therapist. I mean, if therapy worked, we'd all be healed, in that sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, if knowing what's wrong with you was the answer, we'd all have to just read a book and we'd be set. But the point is that we're missing the essential part of healing, which is what your program is addressing here. The part that we can't see, that we don't know. So attending to those inner shadowy aspects takes... the price of admission for true love, I say, is everything you've got.
That's good. That's really good. I love that.
If you're wanting to deepen a relationship you're in, I think was the question, continuing against the vortex of our cultural beliefs. This is rough. To stay with the internal truths, to continue to seek those, to seek the nourishment that we often, or almost always, seek to our partners for. When we stay focused here and heal to the degree we do, it always deepens relationship. Always. Love just becomes more available, more accessible. We soften. Our compassionate heart grows. And it becomes exponential, and at some point there's a quickening, I think, that happens. So more of the same, really. It's not a different equation. It's just, let's stop looking outside of ourselves, always, only, ever, and turning to ourselves.
Would you translate that into see what you have to give more? You know, because maybe something's got to change. But
Yeah, well, here's what I believe. I'm kind of more a universal truth seeker. So what I've noticed is that people either grow or they go. And I've seen relationships where one person really is growing and wanting to expand, and the other is just not really like the deal that you had set up before. And this is rough. So I'll give you an example. My husband and I, we have two marriage vows, really, really big girl pants kind of vows, um, and we came up with them because we wanted to have the kind of relationship that our hearts desired. So our first marriage vow is our definition of love, that I want what you want for yourself.
mm,
And that's profound. And there's no bowling bumpers there. You know, it's flinging yourself into the heart of love and not knowing.
mm,
It's being committed to no real promise except love, whatever comes up for you. And again, let me back up and say that my husband wasn't practicing substance abuse. He wasn't, he had some tools in his tool belt. I interviewed well. I wrote a book about this. I did some work on myself. So I'm not saying that, you can get knocked around in unconsciousness at those lower planes of consciousness. Done it, been there, wrote some books about it actually.
right.
So in a place where we've got some tools, that's that. So our second vow, our first one is our second vow is to tell the truth despite the consequences, and that's also like whoa, that's courageous.
Yes.
No, nothing to hang on to there except couched in the heart. These two vows have taken us now 12 years deeper and deeper, and my husband's never spoken an ill word nor I about each other, and I respect him. I love him deeply. He's my best friend. It's a blessing, and it's the gift. It doesn't escape me. This person is a gift in my life every day. That's not a cliche. And you do life and life goes on, but these are these are the byproducts of doing the hard work of dying 1,000 deaths to the ego, really going into the shadow material. Outcomes of that transcendence occurs. It's alchemy. It's coal that turns into the diamond, not this or that. It's this turns into that, right?
Yes. Ah, that is so beautiful. Those two vows are so precious and deep. And as you say, takes courage. And I really sense this deep honoring that the two of you are committed to. Just to really don't take anything for granted. Don't take each other for granted. Don't take the relationship for granted. And, treat everything with the love, care, respect that it deserves. And what a beautiful attitude towards not just relationship, but to all of life as well and to each other. It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Our youngest said something to me one day. He's a great kid, but we were talking about. I have clients who come, and at the level come into the office or seek help with relationship, and they have all kinds of complaints as we do, and we think that's it. We think that's what's really bothering us. And I remembered I was trying to find a way to be in relationship with this one person who kept talking about how their spouse wasn't having enough sex with them, which is a pretty common complaint. And I was saying to my son, how much sex is enough sex? I mean, Has somebody done a study? And it turns out people have actually done studies.
Oh, yeah.
There's a certain amount of sex that's the right amount. Imagine that. And I thought, I I just I'm thinking that's not true. I don't think that sex is a need. And my son looked at me and I thought that he was just going to get sideways, but he goes, "You know what? I hear guys say this all the time." He goes, "It's not. It's a lie that we tell ourselves. It's a it's a sacred act and it feels really good. And that's it. And you can like coal, it can turn into a diamond and be a portal for God. But I have not seen anybody, I mean, aside from procreation, most people that I know haven't come up with a proof that we would die if we didn't have the right amount of sex."
Well, that's true.
No? So fascinating. I mean, so like all these stories we tell, I think the point is a lot of things that we get stuck on when we think that's it, that's the problem in our relationship. It's not necessarily, right? Look deeper.
Well, yeah, I really like that you're saying that because basically the shadow will use every form of excuse, justification, rationalization, defense mechanism, whatever. And actually, the people who complain about sex really are not willing to do what it takes to increase their desire or their need or take care of themselves, which is why they're complaining. And this actually brings me to a very interesting topic that you had brought up when I was first asking if you'd want to interview here. Let's talk about the societal sexual taboos. And you brought up, this whole cultural shadow of the prostitute archetype, how there's a shadow of objectification, and that affects relationship dynamics. So people actually start to feel like they're not enough if they're not having enough sex, whatever that amount of sex is.
Well, let me say first that unpacking this for me is part of my dissertation. It's,
Oh,
years and years of research and following the imaginal realm, going deep into psyche, listening, tapping in, all of what it takes to kind of follow or listen deeply to what the collective is saying. Because I think for those of us who've done a lot of work or been on the path, there's always going to be stuff to do with yourself. But at some point, you recognize the other track, the community, humanity, what your work is in the world. And within that realm, which I've been part of, working with the um, personal development industry since I was 18 years old, one thing that I've noticed is a growing listening to this very conversation that was very gross and base and has gotten clearer and clearer. So that's it. This is a gigantic topic for me. So I'll do my best to just kind of bring it down to some salient points here as it concerns the shadow. Um, there are shadows that we recognize in our own personal lives, which is what we've talked about, many of those in the sort of the context of that. But the collective shadow, let me give you an example of recognizing the difference. And I hear this from folks all the time. You do all this work on yourself at a workshop. You're fully blissed, one with the divine. You've seen who you really are, and you go and you get in your car. You might even still be sweaty from Shavasana. Who knows? You are expanded. You find your feet. You feel your hands on the steering wheel. Someone cuts you off, and oh my God, we fall asleep and we become homicidal or whatever, some version of that.
triggered.
That's right. Triggered. That's a better word than homicidal, really. Thank you. I'm so dramatic. But only because here in Marin County, somebody recently went to jail as a result of road rage recently. So I was thinking about that. And they killed someone. So it's really true. Can be true. So here we are. We we have that instance, and then at the other extreme, we do all this work on ourselves with therapy, in processing, and so forth, and then we go back out into the same world, right? Nurture nature. The same world that we understand has shaped the very things that we're trying to heal. So it becomes a field, a vortex. Not becomes, it is, but we become aware of feeling the pull. Real simple examples. You ever felt like you're on a diet, and all of a sudden there's just food everywhere at every party? When you start to pay attention, you can feel the collective pull. So drilling down a little bit deeper, the shadow of sexual objectification in particular is so enormous. Objectification stemming from oppression, coming out of the modern thinking of the Aristotelian era, all good intentions, individuation, absolutely necessary, but we have reached an entrodromia, we say, the end of a cycle of that, where we have now practically severed ourselves from other, right? From the idea that we're connected to anything other than ourselves and our phone, right? It's all about me. That used to be actually a popular thing to say.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, 80s.
80s.
It was the me era.
Right?
But it was a necessary evolution from the era before. So every era is a reaction.
So individuation is the big meta, the pulse towards what we are finding now in this culture. One of the ways we know it's ending is this kind of thinking, moving towards a we generation, right? Is that the objectification we can see with the planet. We have internalized it as men and women, severing spirit, mind from body, spirit from soul. And we can no longer avoid the fact. It is all around us. We can no longer just do our work. We know we cannot. We can't turn on a television or radio or anything. And we're medicating like never before because we aren't clear about this yet. A lot of people like yourself and others are trying to bring attention to this healing area. In particular, that's what I'm working on with my dissertation, bringing attention to sexual objectification specifically. I'll keep you posted for more information about that. I could go on and on, but I think I've covered some of the broad strokes. Yes?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like you said before, we have to surround ourselves with support. And then, as you just mentioned, instead of focusing on me, what I can do for myself, healing myself, we're recognizing that it's so important to heal the world around us so that we have a supportive environment in which we can continue to grow in the ways that we want to grow.
Well, and recognizing that who we are being affects the environment, right?
Yes.
So that what we think, it's not benign, by the way, to think thoughts that aren't in alignment with your highest self. Right. You know, it's not a sin. It's just not nothing.
Right.
It's something.
Has an effect.
Absolutely. So,
Maryanne, I can't believe the half hour has whisked by. I could just sit with you. You are so deliciously present to the depth of every concept and thought that we bring up. And I really honor your presence. And I am so grateful that you are willing to be part of our summit here. And for everybody else, look at the link below and catch MaryanneLive.com, where you can listen to a lot of her radio archives. You've been doing this radio show for how many years?
Going on 9 years.
That is a wonderful long time, so there's a lot of material to catch up on. and you broadcast every Tuesday, is it?
Every Tuesday live, and we do encores, and we're on iTunes, and we're all over the place. So yeah.
So thank you so much, Maryanne Comaroto.
Thank you, Neola. Thank you so much.
And thank you to all our viewers and listeners as well.
Blessings, everybody. Keep on breathing in and out.
Absolutely.